Hello, my name is Russell Parker. I'm the executive sous chef at Encore Boston Harbor, and today I'm going to be showing you how to break down a beef tenderloin. Okay, so this tenderloin is what we call a pismo, which means peeled side muscle off. So that means it's already been cleaned up quite a bit when they've butchered the animal, so I don't have to do as much work. So what we have here is what we call the chain. So we want to go ahead, this is the first piece I want to remove. You can see again, I'm just using my hands to help separate this away from the main part of the tenderloin here. And then we're going to go ahead and trim this out. So very easy, we're just looking to release it from the main tenderloin. Again, we don't just want to rip this off and muscle it off and force it out. We just want to do that first initial pull until we have it to where we need to use the knife so we're not damaging any of the meat. Now at this point I'm just going to pull this trim off right here. You'll see got my knife just cutting straight through to pull that away. And we're going to set this over to the side. One of the most popular cuts out of the beef tenderloin, and one of the most popular menu items, is the filet mignon. So these are center cuts out of the barrel. Now that we've removed that side muscle and we have our tenderloin trimmed down, the first thing I really want to kind of attack here is this silver skin. So silver skin is part of that connective tissue. The silver skin gets its name because it has that silvery look to it. So you can see the fat. Fat looks a little off-white, but then the silver skin really kind of gets this silvery sheen to it. This is a very tough and chewy, so this is something we have to get rid of. This is not something we want to serve to a guest. So I'm going to find the start of my silver skin. And now I can see the start of that silver skin right there, and that's where I want to start my cut. So I'm going to get up underneath that silver skin. Now again, with silver skin, I'm angling my knife up towards the silver skin to make sure that all I'm doing is taking the silver skin and not any of the meat. So the silver skin should come off and remain white or silver and not have any red on it. Again, I'm just getting that tip under the silver skin. And I'm running that edge of the knife facing up towards the silver skin. So I'm taking off only the silver skin and not any of the meat. You can see right here we have very, very little meat left on the silver skin, so that's going to be ideal. And ultimately, you would have no pink on the silver skin at all. Okay, now you can see we've really removed the majority of the silver skin there, but now it's going to get a little bit tricky. There's three pieces to this head of the tenderloin. Of course, your main part of the barrel, this larger piece, and then the other side, the smaller flap. So I really want to get these cleaned out, because if I can clean the silver skin out of these, I can work these into portions of beef and not have to worry about this silver skin remaining in there. That's going to create a very chewy and tough eating experience. So we're going to go ahead and just start to get right in here. And this is, again, you want to be super, super careful. I'm making sure to cut up against the fat and the silver skin so that I'm not cutting into the meat. Here, very similar to cutting through bones, you can feel that edge of the silver skin with the tip of your knife. So you see I'm really getting this opened up and exposing the silver skin. And I want to get it to where you can see the silver skin is now ending there. Okay, so this is this big chunk of silver skin in here that I can go ahead and get out. The fat that we want to serve is really the fat that's inside the steak, or the marbling. That's part of the fat that grows inside of the muscle. The greater the marbling, the greater the tenderness of the cut of meat. And that also has to go with how the meat is graded. So actually, the leaner the meat, the less marbling, the lower grade. When we go up to a higher grade of meat, say prime, you'll see a lot of marbled fat within the muscle of the beef. Okay, so that cleans the silver skin out of the larger side. Now I'll go again over to the smaller side. And then on this side, you're going to see we have some fat. We're going to get that trimmed out. Always being conscious of where my fingers are, being very present and in the moment whenever I'm using a knife and cutting. Your knife will not discriminate between your fingers and the meat, so we want to make sure we're not cutting ourselves. Now this just basically leaves the tail now. So obviously when you think of a filet mignon steak, you don't think of this tail piece. And in fact, everything right here, I know if you went to a restaurant and ordered a filet mignon and that's what you got, you would not be very happy with it. So I really want to trim out this tail, okay? And I want to think about the shape of my tenderloin all the way up and down to see where I'm going to be able to start cutting filet mignon portions out of it. So I want to trim out this flat piece, but I also don't just want to cut the tenderloin right here. I could potentially lose quite a few ounces that would go into another one. So I'm going to trim out the flat off the front, and then I'm going to come across the back here. And this is going to be my tail off the tenderloin. Now I'm trimmed down to the barrel and the head. So for me personally, I like to cut these off and use them for something else. So I'm going to cut this back side off, which you'll see right in here. So I pull that off. And then on the other side, I'm going to think about the barrel and how it's cut, and how much of this I want to use to try and make portions up top. So here, I could do a couple of things. I can either cut right down, so we can go right into a portion here. Now this can be tied 10 ounces. So that gives me a good gauge. Now a good standard size fillet is 10 ounces. Fillets range anywhere from 4 ounces, which we call a tornado, all the way up into a very large cut, 10 or 12 ounces for an individual person, to 20 to 24 ounces for the Chateaubriand. So now I have a nice 10-ounce steak right there. This also gives me now a good idea of the gauge and what a 10-ounce steak is going to look like. After you've cut a few hundred of these, you're going to start to put out portions the size that you need more by feel and by eye. And you'll only have to check every 3 or 4 pieces to make sure you're on track. So I'm going to cut just a little bit thinner. Now with fillets like this, of course, because there is that separation, we're going to want to tie these fillets to keep them nice and tight, or wrap it with a piece of bacon before we roast it. This is the true barrel that's left, so this is all center cut. So now I'm just remembering the size that I cut, and as I'm getting a little narrower, I'm going to have to think about the width of the cut that I'm making, because once I get skinnier, I have a cut like this. If I cut this down here, I'm going to really need to cut to about here to get the right size. And then you're going to cut down these fillets all the way down. And again, way out. And I'm separating my fillets out. You'll see I had some off cuts. There's a 12, there's an 8, there's a 7. These are all the 10 ounces I got out of there. All center cuts. Again, these cut from the headpiece are going to need to be tied so that they keep a nice uniform shape. I want to take a quick look at all of the meat we've trimmed off of here. Now, this is a significant amount. This is all trimmed meat that can't go in the garbage. You have to utilize this for something. And again, with a string or with bacon. So that's butchering a beef tenderloin from scratch.